Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Brian Muka. Welcome to the show, Brian. I am honored to have you
for this interview.
It has been. Yeah, it has. And here we are in the now. Which is always what we have in the now. I like to start off asking my guests the question, what were the beliefs and values you were raised with that contributed to you becoming who you have become?
Well, the first one is how my dad regarded grades. So A was average, B was below average, C was can't go out, D was go home, and I didn't get any F's until I was in college studying electrical engineering. So that was not a good fit. And good things come to those that work hard. So that was.
So it's all about hard
yeah,
work.
it's got to be hard. And so that's juxtaposed to when I love the way my dad tells his story. He's a Lean Six Sigma consultant, and he tells the story to his classes, and it's neat. It's neat to know that I get a little shine to the number one test pilot in our family. I used to call myself the lab rat. I like the test pilot idea first. I was the first kid. And when I was about 6 or 7, my dad and I would throw the baseball back and forth. And my dad was a huge track star. So like playing catch with me was like a new skill for him too. And the way that he tells it, as I was 8, he was probably about a 12-year-old level of baseball. And then when I was 12, I started to throw pretty hard. And he was doing this weird thing where he would like kind of get out of the way. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, well, I don't want to get hit by the ball. And it's like, well, that's what you have reaction for. Don't be, I said this when I was young. I was like, don't be stupid, get in front of it. And little did I know, like, that's what I help people do is get in front of the ball. Only the things that we fear can hurt us. And my dad was such it's incredible to notice in that time, like that was before men could have feelings other than like rage, how much he really cared to learn from me, and it was interesting because he's a PhD, doctor, and I said I used a stupid word like for effect, and he could hear it, and so I had both hard and everybody's a leader.
Were you given a growth mindset or more fixed mindset?
I mean, everything was possible. Everything was possible with my dad. And still to this day, like, when I'm feeling frustrated, he's like, I don't understand. Like, you are so talented. And the day that you realize that, like, the world will be yours. And of course you're going to figure this out, Yeah, really blessed. My dad.
Mm-hmm. So you were encouraged that if you weren't good at something, you could learn how to be good
My
at
dad was a student of Robert Dilts, one of the founders of NLP, and from a very early age, I learned Dilts's methods of learning and performing. And very rarely was it an identity issue. He was very good about, hey, that's good, and it can be better, and I love you. So, and then so I learned.
Wow, that's a really powerful foundation.
And this is really the first time on a podcast I'm talking about my mom. My mom is a spiritual gangster. That faith, like, she knows. So the joke in our family is my mom is the patron saint of patron saints. So she knows the feast days. She knows what their superpower is. And so as I think about how I show up in the business world, I said this the other day, the intersection of Jocko Willink and Bob Proctor. And I have my mom to thank for being in touch with my heart and, the spirituality. She's not a fan. I'm no longer a practicing Catholic, but I'm done being guilty and ashamed at my human nature. Fuck that. What is more fun this way?
Good for you. There's a clothing line, Spiritual Gangster. Maybe you could get her something for next Mother's Day or her birthday.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we'll have to. They're not a sponsor, but now
There
they
we
should be
go.
a sponsor of the show.
And we have
Now
music
that we've
everywhere.
mentioned.
I mean, all of us
Yeah.
classically trained musicians, piano, trombone for my brother, trumpet for me, French horn for Katie, my sister, the center, not the middle, but the center child. She's now a professional singer and music director, and my brother went on to become a priest, and I was a bomb technician. So the joke is a priest, a bomb tech, and an opera singer walk into a bar, and it's, that's our family, Yeah.
Right.
Reverse.
Wow. How did you get into doing that? To becoming a bomb tech? Like, was that like a dream you had from when you were a kid,
No,
or
it
how
was
did
such
you
a,
get to
well,
do that? Because that's
it was
not
such
a common
well secret in the Navy when I was
profession.
pursuing that as a dream. When I was young, I watched a lot of Top Gun, and I read a lot of books about space. So I wanted to be a steely-eyed missile man. Yeah, I want to be an astronaut. I haven't grown out of that. Like, I still want to do that. So I knew I wanted to be in the military, and I knew I wanted to do something, on the cutting edge of things. And I'm a high knowledge guy. I love watching Star Trek, Star Wars, and like language geek. But man, I love technology. And what I realized was watches, gadgets, those things. What I was really obsessed with was upgrading myself. So that's why biohacking. And so about halfway through high school, I knew I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, and I kind of lost that desire. And then I went to New Jersey Boys State, and I watched this veteran. Man, he was a World War II guy, walker, hobble over, and no kidding, like this long, bending over, picking up the piece of trash, and then coming back up again. And then hobbling over and throwing it out. My mind was blown. Like, not only was it enough for him to serve his country, watch his buddies die, but to come back and continue to teach the next generation how to be involved in politics and, good citizens. I'm like, I want to stand and watch for that guy when he can't. Send me. So I went full steam ahead.
That was your
I earned an ROTC
incentive.
scholarship. And what I wanted to do was run nuclear power plants underwater. I thought that was the coolest thing I could do. And the coolest thing that I could get to outer space and explore something that we know even less about, which is our own ocean. And then I spent time on a submarine. In a submarine is actually more appropriate. It's kind of like living inside of a pocket watch. And I was quickly cured of that desire.
Wow.
I spent 5 days underwater, and I got to learn a lot about nuclear power and life aboard a submarine, and realized, no fucking way am I going to do that. It was the coolest summer cruise.
Was that when you were?
Yep.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah.
Man, we were watching a movie with the captain of the boat and one of the junior officers, a guy probably like 4 or 5 years older than me. He goes, I don't even know why I'm here. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I'm not allowed to watch movies until I can stand the watch. He had to get qualified, to run the ship, to run the reactor. He's like, I don't get to sleep. I haven't slept in 48 hours. I'm like, you sound like a slave. He goes, this is a really bad idea. Like, I wouldn't do this if I were you. I'm like, cool. I will learn from you and make new mistakes.
I will take your advice.
Came back from that, and I've always been obsessed with pushing how far can I go in my body, right? With breath work, breath holds. I woke up one day, I'm like, I'm going to start doing half Ironman races. And that's what I did. So,
like, you never trained for one
bike.
before.
I would like wake up and do 50 miles when I was like.
That's 1/3 of it, sure.
Yeah. Oh man, you couldn't pay me enough to get back on a bike. Like, time trialing and long distance cycling is no longer fine. It's worse than whatever that would be. But
no longer fun or fine.
Mountain biking could be cool. Anyway, my class advisor, Sean, he had gone to the Naval Academy. He was a ship driver, so he was like in the surface Navy, but he always wanted to be a SEAL. And so he went to BUD/S, class OIC. They told him, listen, do the right thing and get out of this program. Like, you have no business here. And he was like, all right, I guess I'll do the honorable thing and bail out. And they're like, why did you do that? We tell everybody that. And so, bitter, chip on his shoulder, and he brought that to our ROTC unit. And he tapped me on the shoulder one day. He's like, Muka, you need to start coming to our explosive ordnance disposal style PT. And man, he beat the shit out of us. I loved it. I loved suffering through that, like kind of seeing where the edge is. And
because it pushed you to explore your own
what I thought my
limitations.
limitations were. And I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It scratched this itch that I had. And I realized I'm obsessed with becoming part of more and more elite groups and communities and missions. So I connected with the Shore Detachment, which is like a 6-person. They take care of unexploded ordnance and response stuff stateside. It's cool. It's like the adult version of having a tree fort mixed with James. It's like how James Bond would arrange a tree fort. And so I started training with those guys. Okay. And then my dad, who was training at Lockheed Martin, the Lean Six Sigma stuff, he had this lieutenant commander in his class. And he's like, oh, yeah, my son is an ROTC student at Drexel. What does your son want to do? He's like, my son's crazy. He wants to be a bomb technician in the Navy. Like, can't he just drive ships? He goes, I get it. And he's like, by the way, I run the summer cruises for the Special Operations crews. And we've never had a Navy ROTC guy go through the Naval Academy's bomb technician summer training. Is your son interested? And my dad's like, yeah, of course he's going to be interested. So I ran that by my ROTC unit, University of Pennsylvania. And like, will you write me orders for this? They said no. I'm like, well, what if I pay for it? You just write the orders. Like, yeah, we'll do that. Best $430 I've ever spent in my life. Paid for food, I paid for lodging. We jumped out of helicopters. We blew up flare pods from F-14 Tomcats, the movie that Top Gun is about, right? The first one. And man, oh my God.
Have you seen the second one?
I
keep hearing that. I haven't seen it yet. I gotta go.
That movie
maybe
was
this
so
weekend.
Spooky for me, and I was ready to watch it. And the movie that I saw was, Brian, you are a man of excellence. And you still have it in you to be at the tip of the spear. And my dream is to be living on my sailboat with the love of my life in the Caribbean, to live on a $3 million condo that I can take laps around the Caribbean on. There's a middle scene where Jennifer Connelly is on the sailboat teaching Tom Cruise how to sail. I'm like, this movie was made for me. I'm on the path. I'm exactly where I need to be. So I finished that training. I came back. I went to church. And this is no exaggeration, I lit every single candle in church because I knew this is where I was going. Lord, and I said, Lord, if it's possible, this is what I want to do with the next chapter of my life. And I remember the day sitting in my management information systems class. And Andrew Shapiro called. He was my class advisor. He said, you did get it. And I heard you didn't get it. He said it again. You did get it. I heard you didn't get it. And finally he was like, Brian, what about this are you not getting it? You're going to be a special operations officer. And so this gets into my fine story. I didn't believe that I was...
I was going there next. Thanks.
And what I had been sitting with recently was I changed the game. I pioneered a new way to qualify and get selected for the special operations career. I networked my way through the side door. And I wrote it. The story I wrote for those events was I cheated. I tricked them. I don't really deserve to be here. I'm not as smart or as hard or as badass as the rest of these snake eaters. I mean, they are folks that work with the SEALs, SEAL Team 6, really DevGru. And my mentor was a DevGru operator. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? I have no business to be at this table. And I was the only person who thought that. The only one.
Right. Because I've also heard the saying, if you are invited to sit at the table, you belong there.
I acted that way. I had no standards when it came to the way I allowed people to talk and treat me. And long story short, I manifested the early end of my James Bond, what I thought to be my dream lifestyle. And thank God I didn't get that dream. Thank God, I would not have access to my heart. I would not be able to put the war helmet on when I need to and then use the magic wand as a wizard. I wouldn't have access to that for a long time. And if ever I ever want to know what that life would have been like, I have friends that go through that. EOD stands for everyone's divorced. It's a challenge. And so yeah, that's the start of my realization that fine isn't fine.
But at the time, you probably weren't seeing it that way.
And you
Like you weren't seeing at the, can you hear me now? Hello. What's happening? No, now I can't hear you. Let's see what the settings. Is there, let me check your settings. It says it's using your MacBook Pro microphone and speakers. No. So weird. Check the chat. Go check the chat. Do you want to get out and come back? Go out and come back.
Oh man,
We're
I skipped a
back.
bunch of details, so good thing that happened.
Well, I was asking if when that happened, when you left, were you angry about it? Like what were your feelings around it? Because now you look back on it as it was a gift that you didn't finish. But what
Can you?
happened?
Is it working now or no? Okay. Was I angry?
Mm-hmm.
No, I wasn't. I was the opposite. I was done. I was tired. I was exhausted, and it was kind of like fuck this, right? For a year before that happened, it was jump through this hoop. Okay, I'll do it. Jump through this hoop. I'll do it. And about 50% of the command thought that I deserved a second chance. My first combat deployment, my chief, my senior enlisted advisor, his father was dying of cancer. And I thought about Aaron and if he was downrange working on an explosive ordnance disposal, wondering how his dad was doing, and he died, that would have been on me. That was unacceptable. I would never have tolerated that. And I sent him home. I sent him home to take care of his dad. My first class, the next guy in line, never trained an officer before. We had a huge problem. Like, we used to go to ships to learn how to be officers, and then I was the first year that didn't, and it became really convenient to blame the junior officer for not knowing what to do. And I was told, you're not coach, you're
When
not
you were
trainable.
just
I'm
learning.
like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I should have asked for more help, and I had allies, but I didn't understand. My technique in my life was to kill people with kindness. I didn't know how to deal with an adversary. And so within 6 weeks of getting to Iraq, I was fired from my platoon commander position. I was relegated into being the night watch captain, and holy shit, did that suck. It's awesome. I felt like I had the plague. I self-segregated. I started training for marathon. I would go running for 3 hours at a time to escape. I had church. I had the guitar. We built an amazing CrossFit gym. I figured out how to finance that. One of the best CrossFit gyms I've ever been to in the world, CrossFit Spiker was the name of the. And I took such delight into beating the shit out of the people who made my life really hard in CrossFit workouts. Because I never really looked the part. I was always 20, 25 pounds soft, but man, I was a
Right.
hell of an athlete. And I wish I knew that in the moment. I didn't know that. It was never good enough. I was never fast enough. Yeah.
That's such a good point that you just brought up, because so many people listening, when you look back at pictures of yourself or you have memories of yourself and you go, I didn't know how good I was. I didn't know how good a shape I was in. I didn't know how smart I was. I didn't know how whatever. In hindsight, I see how
Yeah.
amazing I was, but I didn't see it in the moment. And to then take that to today and say, in 10 years or 20 years, you could be looking back at your version of yourself here now saying, I didn't know how amazing I was. Can you step into your
That's all
amazingness
we have.
here
That's all we have
now?
is now. Yeah, what a powerful lesson. And so what I
Right.
learned, that was my first avalanche in my life. It was awful. It was my identity. It was my dream. I was so proud to serve in that way, and I was really uniquely suited to do that. I just wish I knew that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a common story too. There was a lot of us that went through the same thing, and my therapist at the time, she's like, "I was going to start a support group for you guys because it was awful." And anyway, I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and I was like, "Wow, what if the reason that this happened? What if I created this? I didn't know that yet, but I created that. I was
Mm-hmm.
unwilling to compromise my values. And what if I wrote the guidebook of how to come back from life's avalanches? And I filled 3 Moleskine journals over the course of 8 years. And I remember the moment that Fear Sherpa was born, like the so what of this pain. I was metabolizing, so I figured something out how to break through a shame part of my story. And Talia Gershon, she's my adopted Jewish auntie life coach. She said, "Where did you get that from?" I don't know. I made it up. She goes, "I mean, some
Where did you get
breakthrough.
what
I don't
from?
remember what it was. Some way of
Oh,
changing the story
okay.
or turning the shame or the guilt
Uh,
into something
okay.
useful, like an
Yep.
alchemist." And she said, "I've been in therapy for 30 years. I've never seen that before. Keep going, kid. You got something." And once again, like Sean, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You need to be part of this." Talia tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Keep going. We need this." So I did. I spent 5.5 years in medical sales. I wrote my TED Talk while I was in Costa Rica as Salesman of the Year. And Fear Sherpa, name of the mission. Sherpa is the name of the tribe that lives on the ceiling of the world. Right? It's a community. Like Blackfoot,
Mm-hmm.
Navajo, Sherpa can be used
Right.
simultaneously. And it's also these architects, the strategists that help people climb K2 and Mount Everest. And if you're listening to this and trying to figure out
Right.
marketing,
The
that's a
guides.
terrible name. I love it. It's crafty, it's creative, it's cute. It isn't very clear. So anyway, that's Fear Sherpa. And
You were talking about
well, no,
marketing,
Fear
Sherpa?
Sherpa. I'm saying from a marketing perspective. I wish I called it
Oh,
something
okay.
else.
Because there was a thing, there was a company or something called Marketing
Yeah.
Sherpa.
Nobody, turns
Okay,
out
I
nobody
just wanted
turns
to
out nobody buys
get
fear.
some
They want
clarification.
what's on the other side of that, and I became obsessed with understanding
Absolutely.
how to dance and harness and leverage fear. So left Quidel June 1st to start Fear Sherpa full time. I ended on top. Yeah, I wrote that TED Talk while I was in Costa Rica. We were gifted these Mont Blanc pens. Mont Blanc is the tallest mountain in Europe. So I'm staring at the cap of this $400 pen, basically writing my manifesto and my letter of resignation. And like, I'm good at sales, my heart's not in it, right? And I was there with my bride.
Right. Yeah, which is another point that when you are good at something, that doesn't mean that you have to continue doing it just because you're good at it if your heart is not
So it
in
was
it.
part of the strategy. I wanted to learn influence and get paid to do it. And that's what sales is. It's leadership, it's influence, it's manipulation, depending on the intentionality behind it. And I found myself spending a lot more time coaching and advising on leadership issues and Some days just showing up with my ukulele because the stress was so crazy in these health systems. Ugh. Thank God I didn't go to medical school after the Navy. So I left June 1st. Um, June June 2nd, I did a Wim Hof event with one of the top Wim Hof folks. Um, I had a birthday dinner, and I wasn't really interested in sitting around and drinking. And my wife at the time gave me a lot of crap for how come you don't want to hang out with your friends. I'm like, it's my birthday. Like, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. You guys, are always invited to the crazy shit that I'm getting into. Like, we're teaching people how to transcend pain and find joy in the ice baths, and it's like, I've got a gift in this. So that was the feather, right? Of like, hey, you're probably gonna need to make some different choices, right? June 3rd, I woke up at the farm. We had this great party at the farm, and then June 4th, my birthday, 4 years ago or 3 years ago, I woke up a free man. I didn't have to go to work. I wasn't owned by the Navy, and my wife was nowhere to be found. She had left the night before. Like, this was my crew of coaches and medicine healers, and yeah, she took my car. She left. I came back with my buddy Dave, and a couple months later, I would be on Mount Hood with Wim Hof, and I came back. She's had only one. Like, it was the most transformative moment of my life. I was around 65 other crazy motherfuckers, and I was finally home. The reason why I had sort of felt out of place my whole life is because it was just a different. I was marching to a very different drum that no one else could see on my.
And you hadn't found your tribe yet.
Never, not until that moment.
Now you had found it.
And we had to give we had to take a test. We had to demonstrate we knew the method and how to guide people through the breath and the ice practice. And then you had to give a talk. It was the first time in public that I shared my story of my avalanche about getting fired and then what I chose to do next with my life. There was 2 SEALs, there was 2 Marine Corps Special Forces guys, and talking to civilians about that was fine because they didn't really understand it. But like, to these guys, I'm like, yo, I failed, and I let people down, and this is me. It's an incredible talk. And I remember putting my sunglasses on after I said it and wept. As it was like, I felt exposed finally for the first time ever. And then, man, I was really loved after that. And what I realized,
It's a sense of freedom, right?
well, I died, right? The tears were about the Holy Spirit, Christ flowing through it, because I had never said those things before. I never wrote them. I never thought about them, and it just poured out of me because that's what the audience and me needed in that very moment. And it was a death. I was beginning to leave that loser, you're a failure, you're not good enough in my wake. Not possible to do alone.
No. And I want to clarify again, like, it's not that you were a loser, you were leaving that belief behind.
Yes. Yep.
Not the judgment of, like, not that you thought you were leaving that judgment of yourself and that belief.
Yeah.
And killing that off.
Yeah, and to begin taking responsibility for my thoughts around how cruel I was to myself. And my wife at the time, she was such a beautiful mirror. And Jessica, if you ever hear this, I'm so freaking grateful. Thank you for being my exact mirror. Thank you for the pain that I caused you, for me to finally realize that I deserve it and I am worth it. I'm sorry I settled for so little.
What has been, so that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit more about the journey that has now gotten you. That was the beginning. And where are you now?
Well, I live in paradise. I'll have to show you some pictures. So, lived in Oceanside for about a year during COVID. Manifested the love of my life. Wrote a letter that was channeled to me from her. And the language is the same. Like, what is in that letter before we really started dating is in that letter. And then I wrote exactly what I was calling in a partner. And the only thing I was wrong, Lori, was about her eye color. I said she has eyes of green that has the stars and the sea inside. Well, her eyes are not green. You know what color they are? They're this color. They're the same shade of brown. She is my mirror. And I remember talking to her, and she said something. I'm like, thank you so much for manifesting me. She goes, what? Game on. So June 4th, 2 years ago, I was in a Zoom call doing a financial needs analysis with a buddy of mine. And my dad knocks on the door because I'm living with my parents during COVID. He knocks on the door and he goes, this isn't from us. Happy birthday to you, right? And it's a cheesecake. My favorite cheesecake. Right? Strawberries,
Okay.
almond crest. And I flip it over and it says Dawn Scheibsmeyer on it. And I finished, and I'm never speechless. I always know what to say. I didn't know what to say.
Well, I find that hard to believe too.
I
that
know.
you
I
would
was
ever be
perplexed. It's
speechless.
never happened before. And I'm like, Dave, I'm shook. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, this beautiful woman started showing up in my Zoom room as I was doing Sunday breath fast, Wim Hof, gratitude, and like a little sermon. Started showing up every week. And I'm like, I need to ask this lady out on a date. And so I did. I didn't know how a Zoom date worked. And yeah, we would have these dates, and it became the Boom Boom Zoom room. Like, I had Christmas lights, and I make a playlist, and yeah, we started dating over it.
Wait. The cheesecake came
It did,
from
yeah.
her,
2,700 miles away.
but before she was in your rooms, or you guys had been in the
Oh,
rooms together for a while, and then she sent you.
Yeah,
a
we had been
cheesecake.
talking for a couple weeks, and then a cheesecake showed up.
Okay.
And
It's not like a random stranger sent you a cheesecake and then started showing up in your Zoom room.
there's nothing random in my life. I'm creating it all. Yeah, so I called her and I was like,
Okay.
listen, when we first started talking, I went through like a recruiting script because we were like in the same financial services, and it was like, hey, you look really sharp, because we were on this like 800 person Zoom call, and like when I would smile, she would smile. I felt like she was like mirroring. Turns out she wasn't, but that's what I saw, and it gave me the courage to to be bold. And I said, hey, you look really sharp.
Uh-huh.
She goes, yeah, a lot better than the sweaty mess I was on Sunday. And Lori, here's where it started. I kind of like the post runners look. Zoom call soon? She goes, all right. I'm like, weekends or weekdays? Weekdays. Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday. 5 or 6. Are you trying to recruit me? What kind of job do you want? So when she sent me the cheesecake, I was like, listen, I'm buying tickets. I'm going to come out there. You're hired. You're hired to the team of executive savages that we are. And I just want you to know, like, if you smell good and we have fun making dinner in the kitchen, I'm sliding all the chips across the table. I'm 100% in. And that's what happened.
How long had you known her?
3 months.
Wow. Okay. So she didn't manifest you. You co-created.
That's very true. Thank you. That's quite an upgrade.
Yeah.
Co-creation's fun.
I'll give credit to both
Indeed.
of you. Yeah. Awesome. So things
Yeah,
are good
right,
now.
right.
Like this journey, again, like we get stuck in these places, or we maybe even aren't stuck. We just are passing through them, and they don't feel so good at the time. It always is. It gets better. What?
So in that idea, right? So a model that I'm playing in is the mea culpa. Everything that happens in my life is my fault. I called it in for my highest good, right? So that cures victim. I'm not a victim. And developing agency, and I'm learning and getting smarter with every engagement and every time the diamond press shows up, and more on that in a second. And if I know that, that means that I've created the adversaries that have shown up in my life. And the crazy awesome thing about that is they love me. And I've never talked about this on a podcast before, but I've gone down to the deep end of the rabbit hole of breath work to the point where it becomes psychedelic, actually. And I can practice dying, actually, in a way that it feels like a hug, just like grass kind of pulling the veil across my face, And one of these breath sessions, I met the devil. I grew up Catholic. Like, that's probably not a great place to be, right? Fear the devil. You're going to go to hell. You're going to. Ugh. It's one of the greatest enslavement tools that we have is the fear of whatever the thing is. Do this or else. So
Yes.
I'm in this space with the devil, and my brain is like, get the fuck out of there. Get off the X. And my heart was like, but he loves you. And I was confused and intrigued.
Of
And I
course.
fell into that. And the devil smiled, and I could feel like a Care Bear stare of love, like right through my heart. And he goes, Brian, the reason that I've been so hard on you is because I love you. I'm still gonna fuck with you, right? And I said to him, you better bring it, you son of a bitch. Kind of like how guys give each other shit in the locker room type deal.
All right. Devil went down to
Yeah, he's
Georgia.
looking for a
Get
soul
out
to
your fiddle.
steal. He was looking for a soul to give the contrast of free will to. And I think secretly roots for us to choose oneness, our divinity, to remember that we get to co create. I love that word. I love that idea. I love that alignment with the infinite. And so, because I
Hmm.
experienced so much scarcity, it increased my capacity to be with so much abundance, right?
Yes, because if you don't know the one side, how do you know the other
Paul
side?
Chek says if you would like your branches of your tree to grow to heaven, your roots must first grow through hell. I pay the price. There's nothing for
Mm,
free. And
so good.
99% of everything that manifests that we don't create it. We come up to its vibration. We see it in the imagination first. Like literally everything you look at. Like if you're as you're listening to this, turn to your left. The first thing you see, that was in somebody's imagination before it became into 3D. Literally everything. Our whole life can be
Absolutely.
like that.
Right.
And so as I'm with the devil, he takes a couple steps, and then he turns around and he goes, "Congratulations, you just faced your demon. And by the way, you need to let go of your shame and guilt um, for where you're going. It doesn't serve you anymore. Let go of it."
Was that before or after the experience of sharing with those people the first time when you shared
Oh,
up
that
on
was
the
about a year
mountain?
later, actually. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a progression for sure. And
Yeah.
I want to share the other. And I want to
Wow.
share the reason I'm on your podcast, and it's to connect with you, the listener. I was taken to this beautiful vista, and imagine like diamonds and aurora borealis, like the most beautiful thing you can think of. That's what it was for me. And my crystal goddess in this vision, she shared, "This is yours. This is your secret spot. But if you'd like to have the life of your dreams, you must share this. I'm sharing with you what I saw, what I've experienced. And thank you for listening and holding space for me as I close the loop on the hell to now enjoy the Garden of Eden now. It's a Wonderful Life now. My buddy Ryan Wall is writing that book as we speak. And in the words of Ernest Hemingway, if we'd like to write interesting things, we must live interesting things. And so now,
Hmm.
from the first book, Your Secret Superpower, Tame Fear, Thrive, the from doubtful, that's actually what I suffered from. It wasn't fear. I thought it was, but it isn't. Doubt. I doubted I deserved it. I settled for so little for myself, and a lot of forgiveness was needed. How cruel I was to me, how little I valued myself. And so the book now is from doubtful to dangerous. This is a very dangerous conversation because we're teaching and showing the blueprint. I can't do this for you. I can show you where the landmines are and what the steps are to take control of your thoughts. Thought control is everything. You know, that's one of the secrets of Steve Jobs. 97% of our thoughts are repetitive, they're a habit. You're not good enough, you don't deserve enough, right? So I want you guys to take 3 deep breaths with me right this second. And this is brand new technology. I'm so stoked to share this with you. So let's do this. Let's
All
take three
right.
breaths together. And
This is a great way to kind of sort of wrap it up. Let's
So,
go.
so we're going to breathe in, and then we're just going to let go. Like just fold into the exhale. So do 3. And then after the third one, I want you to just check in with what your thoughts were and what they are now. So let's do 3, and we'll check in with the thoughts, all right? So fully in, let go. And again. This time breathe in and hold it with a smile. And now let go. I was thinking about how much time we have left and like rushing, right? To be mindful of your time and those things. And what do I want more of? I want to be more now. I want to be right now and know I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm right exactly who needs to be here now. And if I could spend 51% of the time in the I'm enough right now, pleasure, enoughness, gratitude, 51% of the time, whole life changes. Not just mine, but the people who get to feel that. That's the so what of all of it.
Yeah, right. It's a radiating out.
Breathe in, do nothing.
That's hard for a lot of people.
Challenge. You already have it all.
Do nothing.
Or breathe in and find something to look at. Like, wow, that tree is beautiful.
Yeah. Do
and then,
nothing.
You know, if you're in your car or you have a mirror nearby, breathe in. I'm beautiful.
Yeah, try that exercise.
If you struggle with weight,
if
you struggle with weight loss, the reps are great, the nutrition's great, but if you don't love yourself and can't forgive, you will be heavy because you're heavy.
It's part of your identity.
Yeah.
And when you change your identity and find love for yourself, not just in that regard, in every regard, everything changes. You have in many ways, come full circle. So you're still diffusing bombs, just different ones.
I remember the first time and I received that. I graciously received that. Now, guys, I say that out loud because this little demon that's sometimes in here says, yeah, right. Right? The thought is, yeah, right. But when I speak it out loud, I can take it in. The spoken word is 60 times more powerful than anything we can speak. So that means if you say, I suck, I'm not worth it, right? That's 3 times more powerful than anything positive you can say. So choose your words wisely. There's a passage in the Bible. It's Mark 12, verse 36. We will be judged by our careless language. Don't sell yourself short. Remember, you are made in his image and likeness. You are a miracle. And every time your heartbeat, it's the most efficient pump we know of. And it's one of the coolest energetic devices, thank you, Joe Dispenza, for what we're able to do with quantum mechanics and dual pointing and sending very complex messages and feelings without time and without respect to distance. You have that. And it was a gift from your parents. You didn't do anything to deserve it. Nothing. And yet, you get it all. And that's kind of how I think life works now. You don't need to deserve it. It's already yours. You're already in it.
Yeah, you already are deserving.
And that was the big lie.
Just by virtue of being.
That was the big lie. Eat of this fruit, something outside of you, if you want to know what I know, right? If you want to know what God knows. And then Jesus said, we do not live by bread alone, but by the very word of the Father, right? That's that consciousness that flows forth like a spring. And just remember, that's already happening. There's nothing to do, just a lot to forget, right? Our conditioning, your not enoughness. It's a lie. It's blasphemy, actually.
Right. And remembering the truth.
Yeah.
Brian, I knew this conversation was going to be as good as it has been. Because Brian and I have had these conversations before. We just haven't recorded them. Not the same conversation, different stuff, but it's always so enlightening. And I'm so grateful for you coming on today to share this with my listeners. Before we go, I got to ask, what's your hype song? What's the song? I mean, I know you're into being chill and to being, and when you want to raise your vibration even more with music, because there are lots of ways to raise vibration, but when you want to do it with music, what's the song
It's
you
a
listen to?
beautiful day. You too. I play that on the ukulele every day now. I love it. It's my current jam.
Very cool. And if other people want to continue this conversation with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Instagram, Brian J. Muka. Click my link tree. You can schedule time with me. I've got resources. You can order my book, Your Secret Superpower. I really want to share that with you. I wrote it for you. It's there. And then also a fair amount on LinkedIn too. So those are my two spots. I'd love to chat with you, and your network is my network, and vice versa. How can I show up in service and connect ideas and people? And you deserve to break through. You do. And you just need a blueprint. I can't do it for you. That doesn't honor you. And it's already yours if you want it. So come and see.
Awesome. I will put links to that to your links in the show
Right on.
notes. Thanks again for joining me on Fine is a 4-letter word,
so
Brian.
good to not be fine.